Hi guys, welcome to my channel Confessions of a Gaming Mum. You should just notice I've got a dribble patch on my shoulder. Amazing. So today's video is about the top 5 myths about how to naturally induce labour, and I can let you know as well if they are true or false. I've been there in terms of when I was really heavily pregnant with Bubs a few weeks to go, and I just wanted him out, so to speak, because I was just so uncomfortable by then. I just wanted to have him here. So I was looking up for different ways that you can naturally induce labour, if there are any. And when I actually went to the hospital, as they did a sort of induction in terms of what to expect if you have your baby in hospital and things like that, and they actually did a myths about, and asked you what you thought which was true and which was false and all these different myths. So I thought what I would do is I would go with the top 5 most popular ones, and that tend to always raise their heads. Like I always see it on mum groups and stuff, people ask, does this work, does this work? So yeah, I thought I'd make a short list and get them out there and finally confirm once and for all if these actually work. Number 1, castor oil. So the idea behind castor oil, useful to induce labour, is the fact that it actually acts as a laxative. So people think when you take castor oil, it basically makes you want to go to the toilet, which in turn, because it upsets your bowel movement, means that it sort of jumpstarts your uterus into wanting to bring the baby up, hence naturally inducing labour. And I can tell you from the get-go that this one is false. That is not what happens. There's no link between your digestive system and your uterus. So it might be that if you have a really bad stomach, it might feel like you have a few Braxton Hicks contractions or whatever. So you might think it does something, but really it doesn't. It might, like I said, it might just upset the natural order of things down there, but it won't actually bring on labour. And I would probably suggest that you don't try to take castor oil, because 1, it's disgusting, and 2, you really don't want to be making yourself have the runs or have an upset stomach when you're pregnant. You've got enough discomfort going on in your life, you don't need that as well. Leading on from that, another really popular one is spicy curry. And again, with spicy curry, it's the whole thing of if you have a food that you don't normally have, so it disagrees with you, therefore upsets your stomach, therefore gives you diarrhea, and therefore activates your uterus to go into labour. And again, as you can imagine, this one is false. I mean, can you imagine, you have cultures where they do eat spicy food anyway, so they would naturally be used to that sort of food, so it wouldn't work for them. So you can't use curry as a thing to say, yes, it naturally induces labour, because it doesn't. It will just give you a dicky tummy. And can you imagine if you actually went into labour while you had the shits? Can you imagine how bad that would be? I would not want to be a midwife for that person. Definitely not. Okay, number 3 is another really popular one, and this is pineapple. So it's this rumour that was going around, this theory that's just completely exploded, about the fact that if you drink enough pineapple juice during your pregnancy, it will actually help to induce labour. Unfortunately, I'm here to tell you again, that is false. It's kind of false with the whole pineapple thing, because it's meant to be people think like I said, if you drink pineapple juice, and what it is, there's an enzyme in pineapple called, I think it's bromelain or something, and basically it's used as a meat tenderizer or something. So people have this theory that because it's a tenderizer, it will make its way somehow down to your cervix, I'm assuming through your bloodstream if you drink enough, and it will loosen up your cervix, therefore bring on labour. Unfortunately, the amount of bromelain, this enzyme that you would need to drink in order to have this happen, is a lot, and I mean a lot more than you could probably humanly drink or eat. And the thing is as well, it's actually a traceable amount of this enzyme actually only appears in the core of the pineapple. And have you actually ever tried to eat the core of a pineapple? It's rock solid. It's not pleasant at all. So I can't imagine a load of pregnant women just sitting there gnawing on the core of a pineapple. So yeah, it's not one. I mean, if you like pineapple while you're pregnant, then obviously all by means, because it's by all means go for it, because it's healthy at the end of the day. You should be eating as much fruit and veg as possible while you're pregnant. But yeah, it's not going to help you bring on labour. Sorry. So another myth, which again is quite popular, although not a lot of heavily pregnant women actually like to take part in this, and that is sex. So the whole thing with sex, I don't even know if people really think of the science behind it, they just hear that it kind of helps to loosen things up, I guess, and to get the baby moving. There's actually science behind this as to why it's actually a popular myth. So before I go into the science, I should turn around and say that as far as, I mean, there's a lot of theory about it actually stopping labour happening, but I actually think that the general consensus is that this myth is actually true. So knock yourself not literally, unless that's what you're into. Just go for it. If you're comfortable enough to do it, do it. So having sex helps to produce oxytocin, which is useful during labour as well as bringing on labour as well. You have that part of it, and you also have the part that if your male partner is to ejaculate inside of you, the semen has this chemical, I think, in it called prostaglandin or something like that, and it's actually what they use. It's something they manufacture when you actually go into hospital to be induced. It's actually what they use to help soften the cervix. So it's a bit more touch and go, obviously, if you're doing it the natural way rather than if you have a nurse doing it in the hospital. But yeah, the theory is, because that's what they use when they induce you in the hospital, if you do it the natural way, then it will naturally help you to induce labour. So keep that in mind. Again, only do it if you're comfortable. Don't feel pressured into doing it just because you want to get the baby out. But the fifth and final one is kind of a relatively new one. I hadn't heard of it before I was actually pregnant, and it's called raspberry leaf tea. I'm sure a lot of pregnant women that are watching this have heard of raspberry leaf tea and plan on taking it at some point during their pregnancy. Yeah, the whole idea or the theory behind raspberry leaf tea is that it helps to contract your muscles in the uterus, or like your abdomen area. It's actually meant to help sort of not actually speed up the process of labour, but just make the process in terms of go at a healthier pace, so you don't go overdue, and also when you're in labour that the contractions keep coming and you don't have any sort of irregular contractions and stuff like that. So I'm going to say at the moment, as far as a lot of theories and tests that have been done, or experiments or whatever that have been carried out, this one is technically true. But with raspberry leaf tea, it's like a slow working one. So if you are planning on taking raspberry leaf tea, you need to take it, I think it's start having it about 6 weeks before your baby's due, so about week 34 of your pregnancy. If you start drinking, I think it's about 2 cups a day, or it might be 3, I can't remember. Look it up, don't just go by my word for it. But yeah, you're supposed to drink it quite regularly, and then obviously it gets into your system, and it's also helping your uterus contract at that point. Obviously you're not going to go into labour as soon as you start drinking it, but it just helps to train your uterus to get those contractions going. So yeah, maybe if it worked for you, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to actually hear from people that it actually worked for. I tried it, but because I'm really fussy with my food and drink and stuff, I just couldn't get on with it. So I used to have like 1 cup a day, and that lasted for about 3 weeks. Hence why my baby was overdue, probably. Okay, so I'm going to do a bonus one because I found this one really interesting. Again, I actually tried this one, but because I'm a fussy eater, again, I didn't last very long on it, so I didn't bother with it. But there's been a study that's been done on eating dates to naturally induce labour, because I think there's a history in the Middle East of dates actually being used by pregnant women there to help bring on labour, and also to help have a natural and risk-free labour and birth. So yeah, it was a study that has been carried out. It's only a small study that I think they've done so far, been like 100 women or something. And I think what they had to do, these women had to eat 6 dates a day or something. And from like, again, the same as raspberry leaf tea, so 6 weeks before your due date. So have 6 dates a day, 6 weeks before your baby's due. It's supposed to, again, like raspberry leaf tea, just naturally help the process of things. And apparently with this test that was carried out, it seemed that the majority, it's like 90% of the women that actually ate the dates were not only on time in terms of their babies were born by their due date, but they also had healthy, risk-free labours and births. So that is definitely one to bear in mind. Again, if you can stand dates, I just couldn't eat them. I couldn't stomach eating while I was pregnant. Again, probably why I went overdue, so it's my own fault at the end of the day. But there you go. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. If there's any myths that you've heard or that have worked for you or you think worked for you, then please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and we can like share stories or whatever. But yeah, any questions or anything that you have about this video or the content, again, just leave a comment below. I'm happy to start up a discussion with people, because I find like all this stuff really interesting and quite entertaining a lot of the time. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already, and I shall see you all in the next video. Bye!